Hello, welcome back to Higher and Beyond. This is the place for personal development, personal growth, and self-improvement. Oh my God, I'm here not alone. As always, I have my guest speaker, someone who's very far away, and we're going to talk about beyond boundary. But for all of you who doesn't know who is my guest speaker, so he is a writer, a life coach, an advocate for international living as a professional life coach and the founder of Global Summit events. So Steve seeks to make a difference in the space of mental wellness. It's been so beautiful as a life coach and mentor. He is also the CEO of Global Summit. I'm so inspired by him. So let's welcome Stephen. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Thank you, Uni. That was such a lovely introduction. I really will thank you for, inviting me onto your show and to talk to me about this wonderful topic.
It's a pleasure for me. Thank you very much for joining.
Well, thank you. And these ideas, these topics are really something that I'm passionate about because, in my own case, when we're talking about like a boundary setting, I didn't start off knowing how to do this. I started off as an engineer and, I always struggled in life thinking, oh, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough. I had that critical voice. And then all of a sudden life happened to me, right? And sometimes that happens. It can be quite difficult and painful, but it was one of the most beautiful transformation that I could have had, right? It's not something that I would trade for anything because it allowed me to look at life a new way, to learn many things. It brought us together through the study of modern applied psychology
Mhm.
and in life coaching, right? It's like we became passionate about helping other people feel better and to do and to learn something new. And so, with that, building up confidence and building up the ability to help other people. I'm learning hypnotherapy, and today I had a session where somebody was able to release pain, and to have that experience is phenomenal. And so the power of the mind is something that we don't even think about too often. And sometimes we can get trapped in places where we're just not living the life we're meant to live. So I'm happy to have this discussion. I get really excited about it. And so yeah, I could talk about it for hours.
Wow, thank you very much. So this is it's inspiring, you know what, a person who are especially as a CEO Global Summit event, we're talking about personal growth, personal development, and many kind of things. And then we are, you know, as a person who is growing and we would like to help people. And then you just
Mhm.
mentioned about you learn about hypnotherapy, you help people to release the pain. It's so beautiful, the feeling, right? And then it's so inspiring from you. And then the anthology book that you want to release in the coming soon, talking about beyond boundary. You didn't know what was the boundary is until you actually released this topic. So can you actually tell us, who's watching here, what is very important boundary in our lives?
So, boundary setting, and a lot of people are not quite sure exactly what that means because if you're a people pleaser, some people will say, well, you just need to tell other people no. But if you're high on that agreeableness, right? If you're on that trait, like there's five traits that are common that are good predictors for personality, and they're called the big five personality traits. So they use the acronym OCEAN: openness,
Mm.
conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, how emotional you are. And so with myself, I'm high on that trait neuroticism. I'm high on that emotional level. So what that means is that, I have, a fair amount of emotion. Like we hear me talk, I'll say I love things and I get really excited about things. And it's a beautiful space to be because it makes life wonderful. But it can also make it a little bit difficult. So when you go through and have this experience of being sensitive, in my definition of that is I feel the chemistry of the emotions, right? So I have this chemistry that's created my body. I've given it a certain name, and that could be the chemistry of conflict, or it tends to be usually like a fear response, right? So it's like something that you're trying to avoid, something that causes you know an aversion to pain, which would be something like panic or anxiety or stress. Those things are signals to tell you that something's wrong, or there's a potential for something going wrong. So what I found is that I was sensitive on the sensitive scale, right?
Mm,
So I was
mm,
taking in all this emotion. I was, empathic in nature, high degree of empathy, because since I felt it, I could project out what somebody else might be feeling, and then reflect that internally. So what I realized, I was not good at boundary setting because I grew up with enmeshment at home. And so I became kind of responsible for those emotions around me because I was sensitive to them. I didn't want other people to feel that.
mm.
And then you become kind of a people pleaser, right? You're constantly trying to please people, and then you end up failing at that because you very rarely please the other person, and then you end up not pleasing yourself as well. And so you get drained. And when you get drained, you can't be effective for anyone. So with boundary setting, I had to discover what that was and what that meant. And since I was sensitive to it, it didn't feel good when I first started doing it.
Yeah.
You draw a boundary, and it's like, anybody that's been with a narcissistic type personality, it's people that are on this spectrum of just making decisions for themselves
Right.
and not looking at the other person. Then you lose your sense of trust, and there's gaslighting that goes on, which means that that's a term that was coined back I think it was in the 50s,
Mm,
um, where somebody would turn down the gaslight and then say, "Oh, I didn't it's not that's never changed," right? And so it's this idea that things can be switched around on you, and truth is fluid, right? So that there's dishonesty that gets weaved through the conversation. And so for boundary setting, you have to learn how to do it. And just like a baby taking its first steps, when you first learn to start doing boundary setting, it's not easy, right? It's something that's
yeah.
a little bit difficult. And it's something that you can practice over time, and then you'll learn to get better at it. In the beginning, you do boundary setting to protect yourself from wounding, right? So you're wounded,
Mm,
and people trigger you, and they'll re-damage that wound. So it's hard to heal until you establish boundaries. It's a protective measure. But once you heal, then you can actually start dropping those boundaries, because people will still they'll trample your boundaries. But the thing is you can choose then whether you want to have them in your life or not. You can choose whether you want to interact with this person,
mm,
and you can make the choice of, okay, if this person's either not aware or they don't care, and then you can make a decision on how you're going to let that person affect you and how you're going to respond. So it's a wonderful process of learning to set boundaries.
yeah. Well, does that mean if we don't have the boundary, it actually hurt ourselves as a person? You're
Yes,
hurting
because
yourself.
so this comes with the level of self-awareness. Because
Yeah.
when you don't have a boundary and somebody does something that triggers you, and
Mm,
so a boundary, the definition of a boundary is it's this protective area that says, I know that I'm going to get upset when you do this, and I don't want to be upset. I don't want to have that emotional response. So you can set a boundary and say there's going to be some consequences if you do this, right? I'm telling
mm,
you that this is something that I don't like, and that if you do this, there'll be something that happens. In the extreme case, it's like, I can't have you in my life if you continue to cross this boundary. Most people that are conscientious, are kind, will try everything to appease your boundaries, even if they disagree with them. They'll say, whatever you believe is fine. I will support you in what it is that you're asking me to do. The people that disregard your boundaries, sometimes those are family members, or sometimes those are friends.
mm,
Um, we fight to keep those people in our lives, but they harm us. And so it's realizing, if this person's willingly harming you,
mm.
even if they're doing it with the best intentions, is it something that you want to have in your life? And so it's learning how to set those boundaries. And again, you start off with very strict, rigid boundaries because it's a protection mechanism, but then you can start relaxing them later on, because you realize that people that trample your boundaries, usually aren't aware, or they don't care.
Hmm. Okay. So how does that impact in the relationship if you don't have the boundary, if you're not setting up the boundary and stuff?
Well, it causes enmeshment, right? It's like it's codependence in a way. If you don't have
Codependent.
the boundary, if you don't have the boundary,
Yeah.
what you're creating is you're setting yourself up to be hurt,
Mm.
right? So without a boundary, it means that you're going to give, and you're training the other person that you don't
Wow.
matter.
Right.
And at some point, you're going to be completely depleted. What I've noticed with highly, empathic people is they will give, they'll give, and the love they receive is a reflection of their own love. And then at some point in the relationship, they will lose that energy, they'll lose that love because they're just drained and they're not getting it reflected back. And when they stop
Mm.
giving love, it just ends in the relationship. And this is what you see within narcissistic relationships where there's the
Oh
love,
my God. Mm-hmm.
and then at the end, a year or 2 years later, then all of a sudden there's nothing left and the person turns mean.
Mm.
I don't think that they're actually turning mean. I think that they're not actually reflecting back the love that you're putting out, right?
Mm.
They don't have the ability to create it. So it's an interesting thought process, and this is all speculation, right? I'm just kind of giving my thoughts on this. I'm,
Well,
not trained.
it's interesting, Stephen, about, it turned into the narcissistic trait in the sense of, if you don't have this boundary, and then all of a sudden you expect from other people that you have the same high empathy from yourself.
Mhm.
So, and then it actually impact the relationship, no matter the kind of relationship, especially the very close relationship in the intimacy, like partnership or marriage or stuff like that. Can you explain to us about, you know, because narcissistic is like thinking about themselves, everything is about themselves. Okay,
And
what do you think about that?
it's important to remember that it's a whole spectrum, and it's now considered a diagnosed trait. So it's like,
Mm,
there are people that would um, you know, they would be upset with casually throwing the word around, and it's used quite often. So it's a very common word to hear. I didn't know what it was when I first was looking at it. I went to my computer and I was looking up what kind of person doesn't have compassion. What type of person doesn't have empathy. And when I did that search, it took me to a toxic person.
mm,
And then when I go, well, what's a toxic person? Right? I mean, we hear the term, but what really is a toxic person? And it took me to the trait narcissist, right? And it's like, oh, what is a narcissist, right? And I'm looking at it,
mm,
and it's like, with my partner, I'm going, yes, yes. It's like all these little traits that are in there. It's like this is something that looks familiar. I said, yeah, this seems familiar. One of the things was, are you carrying around a tape recorder? And it's like, yes,
mm,
because when you're being gaslit, you want to prove that things are that you're not crazy, that something was said and it was said, and the other person's just denying it. And one of the things that they talked about is that this idea of being gaslit and all of that.
mhm.
Uh, but it's a whole spectrum,
Correct.
and it's not consistent all the time. So it's, if you think about it, if a person's being selfish, it's how do they define themselves to be? So they might include their family in their little circle of who they are. And so they may have a very strong defense mechanism around their family. Um, and so that's where some of the nuances come into play. So it's this whole spectrum of existence of from somebody that has no emotion whatsoever, right?
Mhm.
And that would be like the highest extreme would be like a sociopath or a psychopath. A psychopath would be zero emotional content, feeling bad for they could do anything
Right.
with zero expression of emotion.
Yeah.
And then on the other end, you have people that are highly sensitive, right? So it's like this whole spectrum of emotion. And the narcissist, someone that's a narcissist can be on this entire spectrum of where they're at, of how how little empathy they have and how big their circle of self is. So somebody that's highly empathic, their vision of self is extended to even the people around them because it's like they can imagine what somebody else might be feeling. So the question you had was, like with, I'm just trying to remember your question. It was with a narcissist. What was the question about them?
I mean, if I also kind of forgot, but I mean, the if we have the very high empathy and we think about ourselves, we expect from other people that you have, I have
Yeah.
the very high empathy in here. So I expect from you that you also have the high empathy. Does that mean narcissistic in here also?
Well, we mentioned the big five traits, and it's
Right.
one because you talked about the expectation. Anytime you have expectations, there's no there's no potential for winning because
Mm.
if someone does what you expect, then they're going to do what you expect, and it's like, thank you for doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But if you have gratitude, right? If you live your life with gratitude, then you're constantly filled with this sense of appreciation for something and even the small things that go on. So, and it's also a difficult thing because if you have an expectation and that expectation is not met, then you'll feel some sort of sense of loss or betrayal, or there'll be some negative response. And so, and that's on us because everyone is different, right? Every
Yeah.
personality is different. So, and the personality, I'm actually taking a class right now on personality styles. Where's the foundation of personality? And it's being related to these big five traits again. So it's what, how can we look at these traits that are predictable across society and use them to give a relatively consistent definition of how successful somebody will be in life, how strong their relationships will be, will they have good interpersonal skills, what jobs will they be good at, all of these different things. And when you're looking at somebody that is, you know, on that spectrum of crossing boundaries of, taking advantage of somebody else,
Mm.
they don't tend to last. They tend to come into a company and they may be there for 3 or 4 years, but they will leave a wake of destruction behind them. The good people, the conscientious people will tend to leave. And then it's the same is true for relationships. At some point, there will be a boundary crossing. And that boundary, like let's say that somebody can put up with being treated poorly.
Mhm.
But once they have a child and this person starts talking poorly to the child, they'll say, okay, no, that's not going to happen. My nurturing mechanism or my sense of what a parent should be, you just cross that boundary and now we've got to make a change, right? We can't do this. And that's what you'll notice, though. Most of the time people will be in this gray zone of, you know, I will tolerate this behavior even though I don't like it, even though it causes me misery. But it won't be until something big happens and they'll say, okay,
Mm.
I can't be in a relationship with you anymore, or we have
Yes.
to make changes.
Oh gosh. So this is actually, you know, why is it the boundary very important in life, in every kind of relationship? Because people are different and we have a different personality, each person. We're not the same, and we cannot expect from any other people to have the same feeling what we have. And then I love the example that you just gave to us today about, oh yeah, I can understand about this for now. Maybe this is just small thing. And then again and again and create again because people are don't know. And then all of a sudden I can't take this anymore. I want to end this relationship. This is a very common in the nowadays relationship, no, Stephen, because I don't think I can tell them I can tell this person about how I feel because I cannot hurt, I don't like hurting people. But all of a sudden, I can't take this anymore. And then it ended up breaking up, and then it hurt each other.
Yeah, and that's a very common theme because it's,
Yeah.
the hard part is that it's not, life is not just yes or no. It's not black or white.
Mm,
It's not good or bad. It's usually this whole spectrum of, subtleties, but you end up with a feeling of not being fulfilled, not being appreciated, or some sense that things are not as good as you'd like them to be. And a lot of times somebody that is on that high, trait neuroticism, that high emotion, they want to be loved. They want that connection, and this is where it falls back on each individual to be good at communicating, because you have to teach people how to be loved. And I love this, the book, The Five Love Languages. It talks about ways that people like to be express and receive love. And
mm,
there's five of them. It's, words of affirmation, it's touch, it's gifts, it is acts of service, and quality time, right? You know, so if you look at that, and we can have a different expression of how we show our love. So like, let's say somebody is their active love is acts of service. So they're washing your car, they're doing different things for you, going to the grocery, whatever. And yours is quality time. Well, while they're off doing all that stuff, you're not feeling loved, even though they come in and say, look at all the things that I did for you. Don't I love you? And you're going, where have you been all day? You've ignored
mm,
me all.
yeah.
So it's understanding that, and it's communicating that, and it's knowing what's important for different people. And so if you're giving love language is the same as the other person's receiving love languages, it's going to be a very harmonious relationship. If not, then you have to become aware of that a little bit, and then work on expressing that, because you can be trained. Everything is a skill. We can
Yeah.
get better at things with practice.
Mm, right. Um, we can get better in time, but here's the thing nowadays also, not many people actually want to grow themselves. So what
It's
happened? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say it's hard because
Yeah.
most of the time the worst place you can be in life is tolerable misery, right? It's a
Mm,
misery that you can tolerate. The best place in life, and this sounds strange, the best place in life is going to be when you are in so much pain that you have to make a change. And then that's the best place if you're not in a happy state. And then the best place is finding that place of bliss. So until you wake up, until you realize that all of the automatic programming that we have within ourselves, that pain will be the catalyst for transformation, because you will do something different.
mm,
And so it's not a time to give up. It's a time to understand, okay, the reason it works is most of the time people will take a step in any direction. They will do something different, and they don't care about the fear anymore. They won't worry about what may go wrong, because it's like, it can't, most of the time they're thinking, oh, it can't get any worse. But it may. But it's still this idea that any change is a change. And if you don't
mm,
like where you're at, then you can find something new. And there's always consequences. And it's hard when you're in like this lukewarm space where it's neither great nor it's horrible. Um, you want something different. If you're in that space, my advice would be to work on the communication, to try to understand and find out if this person is on board with you as a team player, and what your best interests are, right? Do they really love you? Do they want to help you have a better relationship? And then that we also need to work on our own self-development, because if we're not healed, we
mm,
need to make sure that we're healed, and we need to be able to communicate and tell people very clear, simple language. What is it that you want?
right.
And that's
Yeah.
not always easy.
Yeah. So we need to work on our self-development, and we have to heal ourselves. And how can we heal ourselves? What kind of treat that we can do to start healing ourselves? Because you know what, that's many people, I would say, they don't know if they actually have the trauma bond inside of themselves. They think they are okay, right?
Mhm.
How can we start? to acknowledge that, and what kind of action that we need to take to heal ourselves first?
The first is trusting yourself. I mean, we do get the sense that there's something wrong. And
Trusting ourselves, which is
so if you,
trusting ourselves is like people are more you know insecure about themselves. They don't trust themselves, right? So trusting ourselves, yeah. But let's go there.
and it's this journey. So
Mm,
it, stepping into the place of self-awareness, in the way that you do that is a lot of times people ask, why did this happen? You know, why did that person do that? And it's this external reference of the things that are going on. And what I'd like them to do is to take that focus from external and then move it inwards. And it's like, okay, what am I feeling right now? If you
mm,
are upset and focus not on what went wrong or why this person did that or trying to make sense of things, if you focus internally, okay, what am I feeling at this moment? And really just ask yourself, what am I feeling? What is the chemistry? What is it? What are you noticing? Where's it at in your body? You know, what's going on? The moment that you recognize that, there's a couple things that happen there. You break this loop of thought that's looping to this emotion, because it creates a cyclical reinforcing loop that the feeling will get bigger, right? We'll actually develop more. But if you're focused on the feeling that you have within yourself and kind of just focusing just on that, then that chemistry will dissipate. And it doesn't take that long. It takes about 5 minutes or so for that to go by. Once you recognize that you can do that, now your body, you're starting to train your body that, okay, where I place my attention and my focus has an impact on how I feel. And then you can go and start looking at, okay, what is the thought that I have? What was the boundary that was violated that triggered this response within me that I don't like? And you could also do it with the things that you like. I mean, what is it that I really enjoyed? So, because you can strengthen that muscle as well. Just
mm,
as when we think about negative things, we feel bad. If we think about something quite positive, we'll feel good. So we strengthen those muscles. We try to shift our mind into something that's positive. And if you can develop that skill of self-awareness within hypnotherapy, many times I'll ask people, you know, when they find the belief or the thought, when they really go, it's like, okay, where is this belief yours? Is it true for you? I mean, or did you adopt it from your parent, right? Is this something that was just said that you carried it along? And many times they'll say, it's really not my belief. It can be something as simple as doing dishes. I don't like doing dishes. Well, because my mom said that or my dad said that. But it's not really something that's true for you. And if you release it, how many minutes of doing dishes have you suffered through that you could have actually been in a peaceful, flow state
yeah.
where you're
Mm.
doing the work?
Oh,
So
wow. So it has to start from trusting ourselves and the self-awareness itself instead
it's
of,
just the,
yeah,
man,
yeah, instead of like blaming or pointing our fingers to others, because of you, I feel this way. Because of the other person, I feel that way. And then if we have this kind of feeling, blaming others or pointing our fingers to others, we're not gonna heal ourselves.
yeah. And the reason that I try to caution against, asking why and blaming the other person is because what if you find a valid reason, right?
Yeah.
So now you have a valid reason to be miserable or a valid reason to feel a way that you don't want to feel. And and now you're stuck in that loop. So every time this person does this, it's going to re-trigger you. It's going to, you have a valid reason to be upset or to feel the way that you're feeling. But if you come to the realization that it's your own thought, you can choose whether that's something that's important to you or not. And there are things that are important enough to be upset about, right? For me, one of them
Mm,
is protecting the innocent, protecting the children, protecting, people that are weaker. That's something that's important to me. And so I create boundaries around that. If that something happens like that, I know I'm going to get upset, right? So it's knowing that and it's creating that boundary, and that's usually one that most people are supportive of, right? That's not something that's in a society, that's like a universal constant. But there are those that violate that, and there would be a response to that. So that's where you create boundaries. You create boundaries on the areas that you know you're going to get upset, and then you have a plan for it. And that plan has consequences, and they're clearly communicated to the other person. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I said that this is going to bother me, and this is what would happen if you violated it, and then you have to stick to it. When you're
Right.
first learning to set boundaries, it's hard because it's like you just want to say, don't do it, and expect the person not to do this. And sometimes they will.
Yeah.
And there can be, for whatever reason that is, but it's the idea that you have to be able to stick to that, right? Because if you don't have consistent boundary repercussions, then the person's not going to believe you, and they'll just continue to do it anyways.
Interesting one. We have to, beside of setting up the boundary first to have a healthy relationship, and beside of that, we also have to be consistent with the boundary that we make. So, does that mean, is it the also identity? Because sometimes when we're setting up the boundary and then we're not doing it consistent, it become like, oh, I don't believe with this person, so this person doesn't have the identity for me, so I'm gonna do whatever I want to do.
Well, I mean, there's no, if the person's not consistent,
Hmm.
then it sends a very confusing signal to the other person. And
Right.
it's hard because for many people that have been on the journey, so let's say that someone that found themselves maybe in a narcissistic type relationship, um, it starts off beautiful because it's like there's attention, there's love, there's a lot of heightened focus. And then over time, that shift becomes more. And normally there's red flags along the way. There's a lot of red flags, but the love is so good that you just ignore them. It's like, you know, everything is perfect here because the person's charming, they're probably quite attractive, successful. It's like all of this package. And then you realize, well, there's just certain behaviors that are starting to come out, and it's like, and it's not something that you expected. And so normally the person that's with somebody that has these traits, that what might be called a narcissist, are usually highly they're optimists. They want to see the best in the other person.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
excuse a lot of behaviors. And
Oh,
yeah,
and what happened to the other person then? Because they want the other person to be the best.
right. But what happens is they usually maintain their sense of self by stepping on others. So they will tend to make friends, and they'll do like the cutting remarks, or they'll make you know they'll say things that will diminish somebody's self-esteem, and it's gradual, and it's done over time, and eventually that will drain the people that are around them.
Oh my God. Hmm.
And so if you've experienced it, it's a slow trickle. And then in the end, they treat the person at home horribly, right? They really treat them poorly, but then outward, they show up as the best version of themselves. And so it makes it difficult for the person to go and talk to a friend, because the friend will argue with them, oh, there's no way that this person could be like that. They're so nice, or they're so kind, or they're so giving. One of the favorite places for narcissists to hang out is like, places of power, like churches,
Hmm.
government roles, or roles of power, like police and firemen and things like that. So it's high adrenaline, high you know roles of significance, but it also gives them flexibility and the ability to cover their tracks a little bit.
Hmm. Does it read also about the director or CEO things like that?
Yeah, I mean, they could be
Oh.
towards that. So they might be like they might, lawyers or doctors, or college professors. I mean, it can be anyone that's driven to be highly successful, right? So
Hmm.
highly significant. But the way that you can tell is it's usually the wake of damage that's done behind them. So there'll be like a string of people that have been quite damaged by their activities and behaviors.
Hmm. And about narcissistic personality, it could actually drain the other partner. And
Yeah,
I saw I see many people, and you know, after they ended up with a narcissistic person, they really drain. They kind of like trauma, like have very big trauma in them. Um, after having the relationship, after had the relationship with the narcissistic, and it's became like destroy themselves, the other partner, so they ended up finished. So why is it like that? It's like very crazy relationship end.
well, I mean, you could never tell, and I'm not a doctor, you know, and this is
Mm,
anytime you're dealing with trauma or something like this, you have to be quite careful. You know, so we're life coaches and we talk about things from an experiential based perspective.
yeah.
And what I do is like if you want to know what's wrong with you, or if you're trying to get healing or treatment with something that's gone wrong, then you need to go see a mental health professional or a doctor.
Right.
But it's time to see a life coach if you know that there's been some bad things that have happened and you feel like you have this ability to to move on yourself. And it's this idea of, okay, what is it that you want? If you can grasp what it is that you want and start focusing and working towards that, all of this stuff can be true behind you, but it's not where you're placing your focus, right? It's like you're
Oh,
focusing on
okay.
something that is helpful, something that's better. And if you're caught in that trauma loop, you have to, you know, do something. And especially if it's beyond your ability to handle,
Mhm.
go see a mental health professional. I mean, this is really important because, you know, people can do damage when they don't know what they're doing. And with a life coach, the focus is not on what went wrong. A life coach will help you focus on where you want to go. And this is the key difference. It's kind of an important nuance, you know, and it's separating what it is that we do versus what it is that that the healing professions do. So anybody that's out there that is, you know, stuck in this in this trauma and going through this, there are some that have gone through this as well and that can talk about it. You know, I've got the book Narcissist Proof that is it's talking about, you know, my experience and things that would be helpful to bringing somebody in a holistic way through this path. And it's breaking that cycle of attracting toxic people, because you tend to work in cycles where one person will be toxic and then you find
Mm,
another person and they're toxic too. And then another.
okay.
So it's repeating that pattern. And so this
Mm,
book is about using my life experience and sharing some wisdom that has been extracted from that. So it's not about diagnosing, it's not about healing, it's about, okay, what might be helpful, some information that might be helpful that could teach somebody else. So and I think that's important for people to know, because it's you can be caught in a very difficult place if you've been through that kind of trauma.
mm.
And it's knowing where can you thrive and finding out what's good for you.
Okay. Um, about this book that you mentioned, is that the book that you just wrote? I'm sorry, I couldn't really.
So the book that's coming out this month is called Beyond Boundaries,
Mhm.
Thriving in Life's Gray Zone. It's an anthology with Dr. Costas Leland, and there's 27 other authors, and it's, you know, each one of the other authors, you know, we've become friends on social media. They're very inspirational. Many of them have, you know, different things that they do to raise awareness, you know, different discussions that they have, very supportive people. But it's amazing to see people grow through this confidence journey, because, you know, if you share a story, and there's some very difficult, tragic stories that were shared that people openly talked about. And it's moving beyond those experiences, and it's growing in your own ability to not only set boundaries, but to thrive, to say, I'm okay. Even though this happened, I'm okay. And then the next question is, what do you want? And if you can answer that question, even if you don't know what you want, it's start noticing, just we talked about self-awareness, right? When you're upset, start noticing what brings you that positive feeling, right?
Mm.
Get you up early in the morning, right? What what will you do in the face of resistance that you love to do? If you can start paying attention to that, that will help you find your purpose in life. And if you find your purpose in life, that's something that's real. It'll move you beyond the hurt, it'll move you beyond the things that are difficult, and it'll put you in a place where you feel good about what you do.
Wow, this is so interesting. It's going to be an amazing book, I'm pretty sure, because beside of everything, personal development boundary is very, very important in life because it really helps our life too, right? And then, like you said, it helped us to find the purpose in life, understand ourselves, knowing what we want, and it's knowing what we want to find the purpose is not the same like, I would say it's not the same like I don't know what I want, but I just want to be the person who's successful. Because it's still feeling empty. I want to be successful, but here's the experience also that I have. I had many time back. I want to be a successful person, but I did not know what I really wanted. And every time, every day, I felt like I almost feeling empty, the feeling like, what am I gonna do? I don't know what to do. Um, mm, I don't know. How do you see from this perspective, finding the purpose, knowing what you want with the kind of
So,
successful? Yeah.
so what's interesting is I think that that significance is a key component of our biology. So we have this need of being significant. We have this need of community. We have this need for, with community comes this sense of not being rejected or not being judged, right? That diminishes that sense of community. And and there's also with that a sense of contribution. We want to have something that we're doing, that we're contributing. And there is legacy and family and other subtleties that are in there. But this need for significance, you can see it. And as you talk to people, you'll find out whether because some people will lead with all the things that they've done in life. But the most significant people I found tend to not.
Mm.
They're more interested in you. They're asking questions about you and finding out what it is that you're doing. But there will be those out there, that it's all about them, and it's all about how impressive all of their credentials are and everything else.
Yeah.
The more that I'm in the world, the more that I find out that those that have done tend not to lead with that. You'll find out from somebody else that the significance of what they've accomplished in life, and it seems to be more often than not. There are some people that are quite successful that lead with all of that, but um, you know, again, they're not my kind of people.
Yeah. Okay.
So, so what I found is, if you find something that gives you the energy to do it anyways, right? Well, if you hit resistance, that you'll pick up, and you'll find a way around the obstacle. You'll find a way to succeed in it. Um, this kind of fits with my life, because for the longest time I tried to be significant. I tried to I had a company, and it wasn't that super successful. It was a technical services company in engineering. Um, but I didn't make all of the big money that I was hoping to make and everything else. And it was a lot of hard work. When when I looked at my company, and then when COVID came, it's like the business kind of dried up a little bit because people weren't going into office buildings anymore. what I realized is that, I started on this coaching and this connection and sharing these ideas. And it didn't matter whether there was one person in my group or 20 or 50. I would still say the same message because the message was important. And I would say it to whoever was there because the message was more important than anything else. As I did that, I just look back at what I've accomplished over the last 2 years, and it's quite substantial. The number of events that we've had, the things that we've spoken about, and the format that we've created as far as, being able to share information with one another. What I found is it's a slow progress. If you're doing something quite substantial, all of a sudden it'll start getting noticed by somebody else, and then they will elevate. It's the other people that can launch you into the stars because they will take your message, they will become your raving fans, and they are the ones that will make you successful. It's not you that makes you successful. It's your followers. It's the people that believe in you. It's the people that cheer you on. So that to me is the thing that's important. So if you're doing a podcast, if you're doing a YouTube channel, keep doing it. If you've got 1 subscriber, 10 subscribers, if one comment or 100 comments, because it's about being consistent. It's about showing up, and it's about doing it even when you want to quit.
I love
And
that.
eventually somebody will come along and they will find you, and then all of your old content will be
Oh
now.
God, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Stephen. Well, okay, so back to our topic today. I would like to ask you the last question about, well, it's not a question. If you would like to give a message to our people at home who's watching this video, what is the first step to start setting the healthy boundary for ourselves in order to have to make a healthy relationship in every environment, partnership, or whatever? So what is the message?
The message is you're valuable. You are valuable, that, you matter, and how you feel matters. And it's not putting up with behavior or putting up with other people that cause you to feel less about yourself. And most importantly, and this is something that's really important, don't talk negatively about yourself. Start training yourself to lift yourself up. Become your best cheerleader. And it may feel awkward, it may feel foreign, but this is your life, You have to make the best of it and start with cheering yourself on rather than tearing yourself down.
Wow, this is amazing. So start, thinking positive for ourselves. Don't ever talk about negative, because this is also related with the kind of, the mind is the way you think, it can happen for you. We cannot, like in a manifestation said, like we cannot attract what we want, we attract what we are.
That's exactly right. And we train our minds, we have our subconscious there, and we train our minds. So what you put in is what will come out, right? So if you allow negative thoughts to come in, if you allow those things to come in, that is the type of environment you'll see. That's the experience that you'll have. And it's okay that you're not good at it. It's this idea that we get better with practice, and it's starting small. It's making one small little change, and then slowly over time, things will start getting better.
Love this one. So, slowly, patient, and it start getting better with time. So just be there, positive, and be who you are.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Yep. Thank you very much, Stephen, for this discussion. It's very insightful and wonderful. I hope people at home who's watching this video get inspired, and I hope this is also can help them to understand how to setting up the healthy boundary and valuable for them. So thank you very much for your time. And yeah, I
Thank you.
hope to see you again.
It's been a lovely discussion. Thank you so much for having me on your program.
It's a pleasure. So thank you very much for all of you who's watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and like. And if you can comment what is our topic for the next related with the personal development and personal growth, it would be really helpful. Your support means a lot to me. Thank you very much for all of you who's watching. Bye-bye. Thanks, Stephen.